First and foremost, I'm going to give all praise to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakal Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are teaching this truth. And shout out to Yakim that's out there on four quarters of the earth. Proclaim this truth. As we can see, though, that judgment has already begun, and it starts with the house of Israel, as we know that the northern kingdom is being judged for the idolatry. The fact that we've been out there, we've been teaching blacks, Latinos, Native Americans that you are the Hebrew Israelites. And yet, you choose to continue to ignore this. You still would rather stay in the stretch of Christianity. You still, would rather worship Mother Mary and stay with these doctrines of devils, listening to what the white man taught you, which has all been lies, And so now he's judging them. He's going to judge the 2/3 first, And we're seeing that happening now. We can no longer even warn about the 2/3, and the essence of that's already happening. Of course we're going to warn, but, the time for us to warn as these things are going off, we told you the mark was coming. We told you that Donald Trump was going to enforce the immigration law, that he was going to, in fact, chip everyone that to prove that they're legal versus illegal. So that's what he's doing now, especially to Issachar and the other 10 tribes. Well, pretty much the 10 tribes, And so, and eventually this is going to happen to the southern kingdom as well. Not to mention, Jake, we made with, everyone, people within our tribes, and, our tribes have intermixed with all the tribes of the earth, because, we're just coming back to our heritage, finding out who we are. So, yet we're still mixed among that. So, we've mixed with Judah, we've mixed with Gad. A Gadite might marry Issachar, especially, from the Georgia area, people that you think are so-called black really go back, they originate from being from Gad, but just having to mate with a Judite woman. I mean, this happened, people you didn't think were Gadites really are Gadites. Take Ice-T, for instance, a famous one, he's really a Gadite, And that's why, some of his lyrics came out really strong, especially in the song where he claims to be a nigger, straight up nigger. He said, he says, and I don't fucking celebrate bullshit Thanksgiving. You think I'm going to fucking sit around and eat turkey? That's when your forefathers jerked me, And it's right there. Well, where's this anger coming from? It's not just from being a Judite, which obviously his mother was, but it goes back to being a Gadite. Because bullshit Thanksgiving is really about the slaughter of our people, And sadly, though, these tribes, our tribes, they don't want to come back to their heritage, and they don't want to condemn the so-called white men. They'd rather say that part of Esau is going to be saved. Nonetheless, though, this thing is kicking off. That was the intro. All right. So let's go ahead and read the article. Trump threatens 20% tariffs on all European cars coming into the U.S. That includes BMW, Volkswagen, not just the German ones, but you could say, Saabs and all that. U.S. President Trump has issued a warning to the EU threatening to slap the bloc's automakers with 20% tax levels unless trade barriers placed on American corporations are lifted. Yeah, but you're the motherfucker that put the fucking goddamn tariffs against the European Union, you fucking cocksucker. But guess what? This cocksucker, because we know he sucks a lot of cock, because by condoning homosexuality, that means you're a cocksucker yourself. So this cocksucker, pretty much is, starting a bunch of shit, but he's doing what he's told. He's doing exactly. And of course, as Apostle Tahar will tell you that we like this asshole. We like this cocksucker because he's actually showing the true nakedness of Esau, the so-called white man. The warning comes 2 days after U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said that the White House has not made any decision on whether to extend the tariffs which had recently been introduced on other European goods. So either way, though, the Rothschilds are crashing the system on purpose. That's why they're doing this shit, because anybody who's an expert in the field of economics knows that if you want to fuck off the system, man, just do this shit. And that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's doing exactly, because his ass got bailed out a long time ago. On top of them hating the whore for the tariffs, also the rest of the world is not very happy with Donald J. Trump's decision to remove from the UN Human Rights Council as we look at this clip.
But today we need to be honest. The Human Rights Council is a poor defender of human rights. Worse than that, the Human Rights Council has become an exercise in shameless hypocrisy, with many of the world's worst human rights abuses going ignored, and some of the world's most serious offenders.
Which United States is creating the horror? Because the whore, Babylon the Great, is the one that's killing civilians in their so-called war of terror.
U.S. withdrawal from the UN Human Rights Council comes after the organization voted last month to investigate the deaths of Gaza protesters by Israeli forces. It also comes amid growing criticism of the new U.S. policy of separating illegal immigrant parents from their children at the U.S. border with Mexico. The decision was not a surprise, as the United States warned a year ago that it would withdraw unless the Council stops targeting Israel. U.S. officials also accused the 47-member body of being ineffective. Human Rights Watch rejected the criticism.
The UN Human Rights Council has done enormous good in countries like North Korea, Myanmar, South Sudan, Syria, but the Trump administration cares only about Israel. And because the Human Rights Council criticizes Israel a lot, it's decided to pull out, hopefully discrediting the Council, and therefore trying to minimize the impact of the criticisms of Israel.
U.S. officials also accused the Council of accepting as members the world's worst human rights offenders, such as China, Cuba, and Venezuela. China promptly rejected the charge.
Everyone without bias can clearly see China's great achievement and progress in terms of human rights. The U.S. attitude towards the UNHRC has received objections from most of the countries around the world.
Rights activists say the U.S. withdrawal is not going to halt human rights promotion globally, but other countries will have to do more.
Also to push back against the United States when it does things in its own country, like rip children from their parents and claim that they have to do so because of law when it's actually their decision.
And so you know what's happening to our people. I mean, it's being talked about, and the so-called white man is very proud of what he's doing, and they're proud of Trump for what he's doing here. But you know that this judgment starts with the House of Israel, which I can't iterate that enough. Pretty much, the reason why the sword, Esau, is allowed to do this is because of the fact that our people don't want to let go of their idols. They still would rather hold on to stretch Christianity. And speaking of U.S., human rights, what about all the shit that they're doing in Syria? U.S.-led coalition strikes Syrian Arab army positions in Deir ez-Zor state province while in guise of, fighting ISIS, which we know they're not. U.S.-led coalition aircraft have reportedly bombed Syrian Arab army positions in the al-Bakami area of Deir ez-Zor province in eastern Syria. State media outlet Syrian Arab News Agency reports, citing a military source. The strike, according to the military source, alleged targeted a Syrian Arab army military position in Al-Hama, southeast of al-Bakma. These are dead and wounded following the strike, the source added. So, and there's more, of course, because we know the one that's really fighting the war against the terrorists is Russia and Syria, an Arab army, which is Bashar al-Assad.
Last night, the US-led coalition bombed positions of the Syrian Arab Army, SAA, around the area of At-Tanf in eastern Syria, according to pro-government sources. 2 soldiers were reportedly killed. Pro-militant and pro-US sources claim that some unidentified force attacked a US patrol and the coalition responded. If all these claims are confirmed, this development will mark the start of another round of escalation over the US-occupied area of At-Tanf. On June 21st, the Syrian military deployed BM-30 Smerch and BM-27 Uragan heavy multiple rocket launchers, along with several launches of OTR-21 Tochka missiles in the province of Daraa. A source in the SAA told Southfront that the deployed systems will support a military operation against militants in southern Syria. According to pro-government sources, the Syrian military already started using rocket launchers to shell militant positions in the town of Busra al-Harir, Malihat al-Adshan, and Hirak in the eastern countryside of Daraa. Meanwhile, 7 militant groups and alliances in southern Syria have announced an establishment of the Central Operation Room in order to plan and carry out military action against the SAA and its allies. Since the start of the Russian military operation in Syria in 2015, militant groups have repeatedly suffered setbacks and defeats in clashes against the SAA because of a lack of cooperation and coordination among various militant groups. It seems that militants in southern Syria have learned this lesson. The SAA continued its operation against ISIS cells in eastern al-Suwaida, in the area of Kirbat al-Hibariya, and 11 nearby settlements. According to reports, members of Hezbollah, the Syrian Social Nationalist Party, and the National Defense Forces are supporting this effort. The situation is developing over the northern town of Manbij, on which the US and Turkey have endorsed a roadmap recently. On June 21st, Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said that the Kurdish People's Protection Unit, YPG, will begin withdrawal from the Manbij area on July 4th. On June 20th, the US-led coalition claimed that Turkish forces will not enter Manbij. However, the final terms and conditions of the roadmap is still not released, so the deployment of Turkish troops in the area still remains in question.
So that's what's going on there, which they're not going to tell you that in the mainstream. And just like Obama, Trump is signing executive orders. This is being brought to you by Dabu7, yours truly, as he is very good at bringing you accurate reports, just like X22 report. But here's another executive order that Donald J. Trump has signed, and it's coming hard on our tribes, the Northern Kingdom.
Trump signing an executive order again. This time, this is in regards to the immigrant situation. Here recently, I was discussing what was happening in Texas, where at least 4 facilities were being targeted to be used in this situation where they were going to house these immigrant children. One in particular was a former Walmart in Brownsville. This raised some eyebrows because for a long time we were warning individuals what these former Walmarts or locations could or would be used for, to house people. It's exactly what is happening in this situation. And what Trump is doing here with this executive order now is basically saying we're going to keep the families together. Now, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of opinion on this, and there's been a lack of detail out the gate on any of it. But if you go back in time, you'll come to find out that the current practices of housing these children at facilities at the time was run by the Department of Health and Human Services, and this stemming from a 1997 Flores settlement, which the Clinton administration had agreed not to hold children in immigration jails for more than 20 days. Now, subsequent administrations chose to implement that law by releasing the families into the United States with the promise that they would appear before the immigration courts, and in most cases, that never happened. Like with Obama, catch, release, they're supposed to show back up in court, never happened. These people all over the place illegally, and then they're showing up in places like California where they're getting IDs, and just because they have an ID, they can cast votes, and all the while, they're here illegally. And see, that was some of the biggest issues that was ongoing. But in this situation now, with Trump saying this executive order is ending the practice of separating children from their families, and they're saying that this will more than likely be challenged in court, well, this means they're going to start housing them all together. So, I'm going to leave a link here with more details. Next time I'm live, I'm going to talk about this. It will not be live Friday night. I will have a live show making up for that. Just stay tuned to my Twitter for the latest updates. And if you got anything you want me to report on, let me know, dabu7yahoo.com.
All right, so anyhow, you know that these housing is after they've been microchipped, right? Of course, you should know that. It's all about the mark of the beast, because that's the final thing. before this destruction comes. Shalom. Till next time.